Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so grateful to those of you who have come and joined me tonight for part 3 of our college information series. Tonight, well, let's do a little recap. Next week, we're going to end with our financial aid. I'm going to be joined by Megan Gross from Hofstra University. I did tell Megan that I was going to chime in because I recently completed the FAFSA and the CSS profile, and I might actually be able to add some insight of my own. But please make it to that one too. But what we did the last couple of weeks, as you can see, what we tried to do in week 1 was make that night solely about SATs and ACTs. We're going to touch upon them tonight a little bit too. But test optional and what that means, score choice and things of that sort, how to prepare, when to take it, and so on. Last week, what we tried to do was take an enormous project like this and break it up into small weekly, monthly tasks, and each of you has a timeline. The timeline's also available on our website if you still need it. Okay? Now Tonight has 2 parts, and I try to time myself because the first 20 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about how colleges select our kids, select our students, what kind of criteria they use, what's important to them, things like that, how they select you. And then the second part, for about 20 minutes, is going to be how you select them. It is a two-way street. They're businesses, and they need business. So they are going to go after you. They're going to market to you. Students in the room, you probably already received a lot of mail, email, things like that. So they are going after you to a certain degree. They're going to try to make their campuses look really nice. Well, we're going to discuss how to distinguish what's a school that's right for you, what's important to you. So we'll talk about that in our second part of tonight's evening, okay? All right, so let's get into it. If I go to a college admissions rep, of which I do from time to time, and I'll say, hey, you know something? I've got a great kid, Wantagh High School. I want you to meet. And the first thing they'll ask me is, what are his grades? Okay? And I don't mean that to scare the students in the room or those that are watching at home, but that's the first question they're going to ask, is they're going to say, well, what's his GPA? What's her GPA? Okay? So that is important, no doubt. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we weight grades. Now, nothing you've seen thus far, students in the room, has been weighted. Nothing. If you got an 80, it's an 80. The only time we're going to weight an average is really next September when you become seniors, and we're going to use our weighting system that we discussed a little bit last week. All right, so, yeah, take a deep breath, guys. Do as well as you can. Don't obsess about grades. Do as well as you can. Weighted GPA, unweighted GPA. We're going to report both. We're going to put both on the transcript. So, if you're in a Regents level class, we're going to multiply that final grade by 1.05. So that makes an 80 into an 84 for weighting purposes. Now, if a course does not have a designation like R or H or AP or college level, let's suppose it is Culinary Foundations. It's not weighted at all. Its weight is 1. So it's an 80 remains an 80. Okay? If you're in an honors class, that honors grade, if it's an 80, I use 80 because it's easy to multiply, will be multiplied by 1.1. And that honors course can be wind ensemble. It can be our English 10H. There's a lot of honors courses here. Some of you may have taken a world language on an honors level. It's weighted 1.1. That 80 is an 88. Gets better. Okay, if you're in an AP or in your grade, a college level class, for the juniors in the room, a college level class will still be weighted 1.15. We've made the decision of weighting college level classes for the class that follows you to be 1.1, simply because AP courses really are a higher standard of rigor, and we'll go into that a little bit more in detail. But for your class, the class of 2026, if you're in college level classes now, they will be weighted 1.15. Okay? Most colleges are going to request a mid-year grade report. I talked to a lot of seniors during the day. They are they're crawling to the finish line. They're exhausted, and they know that after this mid-year grade report, they kind of have to hang on by their fingernails. I don't recommend it, but again, your senior year is not a blow-off year. Do as well as you can, especially up until that mid-year grade point, because this week, now that we have second quarter grades, we are sending mid-year grade reports for our seniors. If you apply via Common App, which most of you will, we're going to send that mid-year grade report automatically. It's part of the Common App. If you applied some other way, we would need your written permission to send those grades. Okay? Recalculating. Many colleges do this. They'll receive your average, and then they'll say, oh, that's nice, but we're going to use your English, social studies, math, science, and world language grades. We're going to add those up and divide, and we'll see what your core average is, or recalculate. Okay? So if you hear the word recalculate, that's what that means. All right. Okay. After I tell the representative I have this great kid and I tell you grade point average, what do you think the next question he may ask me? Any guesses? Absolutely right. The strength of program. The strength of program, they're going to say, okay, he's got a 90-something average. What did he take? What did she take to get that 90 average? If challenging courses were available and not taken, it deserves an explanation. So if we follow along that path, you've taken Spanish 3, you're in Spanish 4. If you don't take Spanish 5 or AP Spanish, then something else should have filled that void. Sometimes it's band or something like that, and you say, okay, the student's a musician, I get it, but to omit or to take away some of these challenging courses for no other reason is a red flag. Not everybody should take courses out of their academic range. So I'm not saying to anybody who's listening or who's here tonight to say, well, I'm going to take AP seminar and research. I'm going to take, AP Spanish. It's not really my message tonight. Do as well as you can in the level you are, but I try to gauge it like this. Now, this time of year, we're looking at scheduling. We're scheduling the freshmen, the sophomores, and the juniors. And I would say if a student earned at least a 75 in the prerequisite, let's say Spanish 4 pre-AP, then they're a decent candidate for AP. I might opt to have that student take college-level Spanish, which is a little easier. So we can make those decisions together between the students, the parents, and the counselor. Students, and that's one of the things I ask students. I'll say, well, you got a 75 or you got an 80. Was your effort really strong to get that 80? Did you have a tutor and you went to extra help? And they'll be very honest with me, and sometimes they'll say, not really, and that's an indication as well. So we put all these things together, and then we really try to put the student in the right course. Does the student really want it? Do they really want to do it? We're not just in business to impress colleges. We're in business to develop you. So with that in mind, these upper level classes are sometimes a very good idea for the right student, sometimes they're not a good idea for the right student. All right. It's not moving. Here we go. Yeah, not everyone should. Be the best student you can be on your level. But make no mistake, with our next category, strength of program becomes very important. Let's look at that. Because after strength of program and GPA, if you have an SAT score or an ACT score, they're going to want to look at that. Now, here's the tricky part. Since we have score choice and these other, I should say, test optional, many students don't send an SAT score, and they're advised not to. If a student will look on a college website and they'll see, well, you know, the average SAT at Boston University is a 1350, and I have a 1300 or I have a 1250, maybe I shouldn't send my score. And that's a conversation that we can have. But if we don't send that score, they're going to look at that transcript with a lot more scrutiny. Okay? That's a very, I really don't like the test optional method, and I'll tell you why. Because Boston University's average SAT, or mid 50% range, is about 1400. And that's insane. But it's only because the only students that are declaring scores are kids with 1400 or better. No one else is sending the scores. So, of course, their average is astronomical, and it hurts our kids. So, but take the SAT, take the ACT, see how you do, prepare for it, and then let's have that conversation of whether or not sending that score is the right thing to do. I always say develop a testing calendar. Now, the juniors in the room, you're really halfway through it. You're really looking now at some final preparation, maybe taking one in the spring, and possibly one in the fall, maybe October. October is a big month for seniors taking the SAT. But that's kind of your testing window. After that, November's kind of pushing it. Right. Okay. Tied for number 3. I really can't distinguish which is going to be more helpful, because depending on the student, a letter of recommendation can be a very powerful piece in your portfolio. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. If you may have seen on a little buffet that I set up over there, I'm giving out some paper. And those 3 pieces of paper are what we use as tools when we write letters of recommendation. Now, one of them is solely for teachers, and let's talk about that for a second. You're going to choose 2 teachers this spring, and you're going to ask them. We still use the personal method. We don't use Naviance. We don't use Common App to ask teachers for letters of recommendation. We use the old-fashioned approach of going to a teacher, Ms. Burke, let's say, and saying, Ms. Burke, would you mind writing me a letter of recommendation for college? Just like that. Doesn't have to be much more than that. And she is 99.9% of the time going to say, I'd be delighted. I would like you to fill out a recommendation form in the guidance office, and it's going to give her, as you see, maybe some things that she didn't know that she can include in her letter. Now, what teachers' letters do not include and should not include are things on your activity sheet. A teacher letter shouldn't say, well, so-and-so is on the winter track team and is involved in the Key Club and so on. That's not what we want in teacher letters of recommendation, and most of our teachers don't do that. What we really want from a teacher letter of recommendation is for a teacher to say, this student is ready for college level study. This is why. He's engaged in discussions. He leads discussions. She is insightful. She writes well, that kind of stuff. So you can help the teacher write that letter if you put maybe some of the strengths that you think you have. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not bragging. And we always tell students, and I always give Mrs. Swanson credit for this comment because she would say it at these evening forums. If you want a teacher to write that you you lead classroom discussions, then lead a classroom discussion, right? If you want a teacher to say that you write well, then work on your writing. All those things. Don't pick a teacher that simply you have a friendly relationship with. It'd be nice, but really someone who fits maybe your major. Engineering majors, math majors, things like that, it makes sense to get a math teacher or a science teacher. Students going into education, other kinds of humanities fields, social studies, and English makes sense there. So sometimes students get one of each, which is fine too. But that's kind of the method. Now, as far as the counsel letter is concerned, counselors write a letter of recommendation, usually over a page long, for each of their seniors. And having done it many times, what we'll do is we'll spread things out on our desk, and we'll have your transcript, and we'll have your parent brag sheet, and we'll have your counselor letter of recommendation form, which I've provided with you over there, and all these kinds of things, your bio that you've written for us and so on, and just notes that we've taken over the years about you. And we'll put all this together, and we'll try to bring your transcript to life, to bring you to life and make you multidimensional. Now, let me mention something about the parent brag sheet for a moment. Everyone has one here in the room? Now, those of you who are at home, these forms, the parent brag sheet, the counsel letter of recommendation form, the teacher letter of recommendation form, they are all available on the guidance website, so you can access them at any time. Now, we call it the parent comment sheet because the parent brag sheet was it was silly. But I'll tell you, some of the things we get on the parent sheet. If your son or daughter empties the dishwasher, you're very lucky. And that's wonderful. I wish I could get my son to empty the dishwasher. But I'm not going to put that in a letter of recommendation. Let me give you an example of something that I saw on a parent sheet some years ago that we were very able to use in a letter of recommendation. Now, it's something I never knew about this particular young man. He would leave school every day at 2:30. Wasn't in a club or anything like that. Played a sport, but I think for 2 out of the 3 seasons he went home. And I didn't know, I just figured he'd go home. And what the parent wrote in the sheet is that he would go home each day and care for his grandfather who lived with them and start dinner before his parents came home. Who would know that? And what a wonderful story. And we certainly included that in a letter of recommendation. So if you have something like that, sometimes students have younger siblings that they care for, or they take a younger sibling off the bus or anything, or something like that, or they just show kindness to a neighbor. Anything like that is a powerful anecdote for us to include. So parents, if you think of those kinds of things, put them on that parent sheet, and we'll be sure to include them. Okay, next piece of the admissions package. The one that students dread the most is the dreaded essay. And think about it. We're going to say, all right, guys, we're going to have you sit down and you're going to write an essay that's going to have a big determinant on your college admissions. Yeah, just relax and go ahead. Start that essay. Now, and kids freeze up when they do that. And what I'm going to tell you is this. It's a great opportunity for you to shine. Think of it as an opportunity. I've read some good essays. I've read some great essays, but they have to be yours. They could sniff through AI in a second. Don't use it. Make it your writing. You can start journaling now, really. The essay prompts, tomorrow when this is on our website, you'll be able to see the essay prompts. So by and large, these essay prompts have these kinds of themes. They have themes of resiliency and grit, and I feel accomplished because I did this, or I overcame this obstacle, or I am very passionate about learning this. Those kinds of themes are really, really resonate. So, but don't be afraid of that essay, and we're going to talk more about the essay when we meet in the summer. We're going to have a Common App workshop. Okay. All right. So, you got good SAT score, you have good GPA, you have a solid transcript, you have all of that, you have nice essay. But did this kid lock himself in his room for 3.5 years and not talk to anybody? I hope not. So they want to know, if you were involved. In what ways did you get involved and be involved in our school? I have a particular philosophy about activities. I was the Key Club advisor here some years ago. And in September, I would have the meetings in the cafeteria. And the first few meetings, you couldn't get a seat. It was 100 students in the cafeteria who wanted to be in the Key Club. And then as the meetings wore on, I'd get less and less. But somebody told these kids that this looks good for college. They had no interest in being in the Key Club. They really didn't want to be there. That's not what activities are for. The benefit of activities is that they help our kids grow up, period. When you're involved in the Key Club, or you're involved in some kind of a club or a sport, you learn how to interact with people, you learn how to be a teammate. Sometimes you handle money, you talk to adults, you have responsibility, you resolve conflicts. That's what activities are for, and that's why colleges like them. And so I really encourage those listening and those that are here tonight, if you have 1.5 years with us, and you're thinking about joining something new, by all means do so. Now, that being said, activities can help you get in. Here's how. Now, I rate them poor, fair, good, excellent. Poor. Breaks my heart. We have so many great clubs and sports in this school. For students not to do anything, I wish they would. Okay? They have any social interaction. So if you're writing on the Common App and you don't put anything down there, or maybe you just have a part-time job and that's all you kind of do, and you're kind of isolated, it's not gonna help your cause. It's not gonna help your admissions. Fair. All right. Student had a job. Student was in a sport, had a job. A lot of our kids fit this category. This is who they are, and that's fine. It's not going to help you, and it's not going to hurt you in terms of college admissions. Then you get kids who are a little bit more advanced. I'm in the band for 4 years. Okay, I'm not the drum major, but I've been in the band for 4 years. I'm a scout. I'm not an Eagle Scout, but I'm a scout. I do some other things. I'm the treasurer of the Spanish club, something like that. I've done a few things. Not bad. Putting that on the activity profile of the Common App, that's going to help a little bit. That's not bad. And plus, it helped you grow up. But we do have students that take activities to another level, and then it does matter for college admissions. We have had in this building students who have done research. We've had students who were accomplished musicians, all-state athletes, award winners of different kinds. We had a kid write a book, you know, just these are involvement. Eagle Scouts and so on. They've chartered clubs, you know, so this is activities on another level that will assist in and enhance your Common App. You don't do that excellent part, you don't do that just to impress a college. No one would put that kind of time in just to impress a college. The kids who do that, they do it because they love it, and then it helps. So it's kind of like, oh, a byproduct of me doing this kind of stuff is that it helps me get into college. But it's an awful lot of time that's expended to have an excellent, you know, activities rating. Okay? All right. I made it by 2 minutes. I'm on time. I don't want to talk too much. Anybody have any questions about what we talked about so far? No? So you're going to be evaluated on your GPA and your strength of your transcript, possibly your standardized test scores, your college essay, and your letters of recommendation, and your activities. And by the way, with the essay, you're going to write more than one. You're going to fill out the Common App, and that has an essay. And then when you finish that, there's going to be some supplementals for each college, which will be shorter, maybe 300 words, that kind of a thing, which will give you another chance to shine. Again, think of it like an opportunity. Any questions? Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. The Common App. And what is the Common App? The Common Application is a website where students will apply. They'll put in all of their general information, and they can apply to multiple schools through that one application. That's why I call it the Common Application. I think it's a very good thing, but it also has enabled students to apply to more colleges than they might need to, because it's easy to do. But I have there's a link to the Common App later in this presentation, so you'll be able to click on that tomorrow. Okay? Someone else had a question? Good question. Are any of the essays, let's say in the supplemental essays, are they repeats? Some of them can be. So some of you students in the room might get lucky, and you'll say, whew, you know, Quinnipiac's essay is kind of generic of why do I like Quinnipiac, and, you know, it might be similar to Binghamton. I could change a couple of words, make sure you change Quinnipiac to Binghamton, and then I can use that. But some of those supplemental essays are, tell me something specific about Boston College that you found interesting. So they're going to, or another one that I read recently, Wake Forest's mission is to serve, and this, and I forget what it was. Tell us how that relates to your life. That's going to be unlike any other essay. So sometimes you can get away with doctoring up one of your existing essays and using it again. And again, be careful though, and take out all references to the other college. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right. So let's take a look now at the other side of the coin. And this is where you are right now. You have 6,000 colleges to choose from, and we're going to help you whittle that down. That's how they choose you. This is how you choose them. Okay. And we're going to look at how to decide where to apply, how many colleges should I apply to. I think I said last week our average Montauk High School student will apply to an average of 12, but that average encompasses students who apply to 3, and we have students who apply to 20 or more. So one thing I want to do, just to backtrack a second, to look at, there is one more criteria that I think you should be aware of, and it's called demonstrated interest. If you visit a college, make sure they know you are there. A lot of colleges have virtual open houses where you can log on at home, they're wonderful. You can do that. They'll have a record of you joining there. And responding to emails. I think that's the job of our seniors right now, is to, Geneseo sends you an email, and you say, thank you very much. It's a job. But we have to play that kind of game that we're still interested. All right, so let's go back to this. We're going to apply to some different kinds of schools. We're going to talk about reach, safety, and target, and what that means. Okay. These are terms that I thought of because this is the way I looked at it, and it's the way I looked at when I bought my house. And that's how I related to parents. Think about when you bought your house. And there were many houses to choose from in many neighborhoods in many states. And yet you came here because you eliminated the vast amount of houses by saying, all right, it should be in a certain location. My job is on Long Island. My family's on Long Island. We'll stay on Long Island. It has to be a certain price range. I'm going to eliminate a lot of houses that are over $1 million or over $2 million. And, good schools maybe. So you have some preliminary data that you're going to eliminate a lot of choices. And it's the same thing with choosing a college. You're going to use some preliminary criteria to narrow that list down immediately. Okay, I'll give you an example. The University of Alaska at Juneau. It's a wonderful college. Are we going there? Probably not. It's out of our geographic range. But I never had anybody go there, but I'm sure people do. We want to narrow your choices from thousands to many fewer. If you had so many choices, you wouldn't be able to make a decision. Okay. So here's our preliminary research. This is going to be like 6 factors. And I want you to tell me if I'm missing one, because your family might have another. Let's look at it. All right, the first one is going to be location. A lot of things go into location. It could be, we were driving home from someplace, and we had to go through the Lincoln Tunnel, and we passed through Manhattan, and I showed my son, this is Baruch College, CUNY Baruch. And he's like, I don't want to go here. I wouldn't go here. It's not, he didn't want an urban campus. And I said, that's fine. Although he liked some schools in Boston, go figure. But it could be urban. It could be suburban, like Hofstra. It could be rural, like Geneseo. All right? How far from home? How far from home is close enough or far enough? And what kind of local characteristics do they have? This happens to be the University of Miami. Very nice, but it's costly, and it is the distance itself adds a cost to your expenses in traveling back and forth, and that's something to consider when you go to a distant school. Is this location right for me? If I'm going into law, do I want to be in a government center? If I'm going into environmental science, do I want to be in more of a wooded area and things of that sort? What kind of location is right for me? There are other things about location. When we can talk about students who maybe have health issues that want to be closer to home or near a hospital, something like that. But by and large, I think you get the idea. Most Wanto High School students stay within a 4-hour radius, with the exception of SUNY Buffalo. They will travel, up there, and Geneseo. Preliminary research criteria number 2. Can I get in? This is a question counselors get all the time. Do you think you can get in? Do you think you can get in that school? From year to year, that applicant pool will vary. And sometimes students do get in on a given year, and then very next year, student with the same kind of numbers don't get in. It really can vary. Is it a good academic fit for me? Sometimes students want to get into that reach school, and they're really not. Would they fit in? And that's what I try to, we try to work with students on that. But the reach school is, you have an 85 average, they want a 90. Are your chances of getting in 0? No. But it's a reach. You have less than a 50% chance of getting in. We say go for it. We'll support your application 100%. But we'll also ask you to pick some targets and safeties or range schools. You have an 85, they ask for an 85, or their average is an 85. It's right in your range. You should pick some of those schools as well. Safety schools, we throw a few of those on your list. You have an 85 average, they accept an 80 average. They may even give you money. So that's why students start to apply to more than 10. They'll apply to 12. They might apply to 15 because they say, well, I want a few safeties on there, and I want a few reaches on there, and I want a few in my range. Okay, criteria number 3 that you'll eliminate the vast majority of schools is cost. Now, be careful with cost because we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. You can go on a college website and do a net price calculator, and it can give you an idea of how much that's going to cost you. We'll talk more about that next week. But what I like to do, I have a thing here. What's going on with that? Excuse me a second. Okay. I use the target, or should I say reach, safety, and range method for cost as well. So I would advise a student, a family, to apply to some SUNYs. That's kind of a financial safety. A lot of students apply to Nassau Community College. It's a financial safety. And then they also apply to some private schools that could be between $75,000 and $90,000 a year. That's not an exaggeration. So do we only want to apply to $90,000 a year colleges? Probably not. I don't know anything about your finances in the room, but more than likely we're going to have a mixture of these kinds of colleges. Some SUNYs, some CUNYs, and maybe some private schools. Okay. We're going to talk about financial aid, a couple of different financial tools that you can use to maybe figure out how much that's going to cost you. What I would recommend is having those conversations early and having full disclosure with your son or daughter and saying, our projections are, this is how much we can afford. So there aren't any surprises. That if this college comes across with this kind of financial aid, we could do it. But if they don't, we're going to have to go to a second choice. That's just a reality, because what we don't want is students coming out of college and being strapped with tremendous debt. Then you'll never get out of. So we're very conscious of that. Okay. Criteria number 4. Okay. This can often drive the conversation. The number one Most popular major in America is undecided. And I'm not, I'm not trying to make a joke. Most college freshmen enter college with an undecided major. That's okay. But let's do it this way. Now, everybody got an outline, or I should say a timeline from last week. And one of the things on the timeline is maybe by the end of March, you might have 20 possible majors. You go on Naviance, you go on Niche, you go on Big Future, things like that. And you say, okay, you look through some books, and you start to jot down maybe 20 possible majors. Then after that, by June, maybe trim that list to 5 through your visits, through your research and stuff like that. And then maybe by the summer, you're down to 3. Apply to schools that have all 3. Because you don't want to change major, you don't want to change schools. So if your majors are like, I like finance, and I like, biology, and I like psychology, these schools have all 3. It's not a bad strategy to employ, okay? But it's a hard thing to ask our 17-year-old students who don't have that scope of the world yet. And now you're going to gain that scope. You're going to be visiting college fairs. I tell students when we visit college fairs, we're going to talk about that in a second, if nothing else, just look at their list. Look at that list of majors and see if there's anything on there that grabs your interest. Okay? It's clicking. Okay. All right. When I ask students about size, they usually say, I don't know. I don't care. Because all they know is Wantagh High School, 840 students. But it varies greatly, as you'll see. Oh, I didn't give you the guess. I gave away the answer too quickly. There's almost 72,000 students at University of Central Florida. That is astounding. That's amazing. I don't know if there's 72,000 people in Wantagh. Okay? Marlborough College has 192 students. Most you're going to find between the 5,000 and 15,000 range. But some students I talk to, they want big. They say, I don't want to be little. Wantagh is a little fishbowl. I want to be with a lot of students. I want a big football game on a Saturday. That's what I'm looking for. God bless. I'm glad that they know what they want. Because like I said, a lot of students don't. They don't really know how to answer that question. Other students say, I kind of like the small approach. I like a smaller campus. I don't want to have to take a bus to get to another part of the campus and that kind of stuff. And, I might have a student in a class or a friend in a class that I'll never see again. If you're in classes with 72,000 students, you may not see a student ever again. All right. There are certainly benefits of both. Every campus has a different layout. How many of you have visited colleges here in the room? Go to some colleges? Okay. You've noticed that colleges have a different layout. Every one of them is kind of situated in a different way. When I visited Cortland, I didn't realize how narrow and long it was. So you did need a bus, even though it's a small college. To get from the dorms to the gym, you kind of needed a bus. It's just a long and thin campus. Whereas I visited URI last summer, and everything's kind of in a circle, and it's kind of connected with different paths, which I thought was nice. But that's me. Some students, it doesn't matter. All right. Number 6 is really anything that's important to you. I have students who, they're shopping around at different programs for students with disabilities. That's important, and you ask questions about it. Athletics, like I said, some students, they're not athletes, but they want to be at the football game. They want to be at that D1 basketball game at UConn or someplace like that. Or they want to play intramural sports. It's important. You know, different kind of family, you know, situations that might be important to you. Different campuses have a different flavor to them. I remember visiting Skidmore upstate, and just there was art everywhere. It was a very artsy place. They didn't have a football team. That's not that kind of place, you know. I just find it also so interesting that each campus has a different kind of a culture like that. Rutgers, too, impressed me with, there was so much culturally going on at Rutgers, whether it be poetry readings or bands, Battle of the Bands, and all kinds of music stuff going on. You wouldn't think Rutgers, but it was. So different considerations, and it's all worth a visit. Clicking this thing. Yeah, honors programs. What's very popular now is students are accepted into honors programs at what could be a safety school. And it's a great deal because they get preferential housing, they get preferential registration, they have small classes, they have cultural excursions, study abroad programs. I'm a big proponent of honors programs. It can be really a wonderful experience. And, you know, you see who has honors programs, and it's a good thing to ask. And it's a good segue, honors programs, that is, into secondary research. Secondary research is we've done all our preliminary research, and we have about 25 schools. We have about 25 schools that we are going to be looking at. And we don't want to apply to 25 schools or 30 schools. So now we're going to do some digging. Secondary research, if I can relate it back to buying your house, you don't walk into a house and say, do they have oil or gas, heat, or something like that. That's a secondary question. And the same thing with this now. You're going to be asking some secondary questions. College fair is April 1st. We have, almost 2 months to prepare for the college fair. And what I mean by that is coming up with questions, not answers. The more questions you can think of a secondary nature, the more that college fair is going to be worthwhile for you. Let's look at it. Okay? We can talk about what kind of merit-based scholarships do you have at your school? Does my son or daughter have to apply for them, or are they automatically included in the application? What are the study abroad programs? To what countries? How much is it out-of-pocket cost to the family, or is it paid for by the college? Lab hours, gym hours. Is that just for athletes for the gym, or is it open to anybody? That kind of stuff. Is there research going on at the college, if I'm into that? What kind of housing situations? Is housing guaranteed for 4 years? At what point do I have to find an apartment nearby? That kind of thing. Is the first year a triple or a four in a room? That's a big adjustment, guys. I mean, I don't know how many of you have your own room or something like that. To go from being by yourself to sleeping with 2 or 3 other people in a room is something just to get used to. It's just something to ask, Where's the bathroom? It's down the hall. Maybe. Or you could be in a suite, in which case, let's say 2 rooms share a bathroom. Secondary questions. We were offered a work-study program. What jobs exist on campus where the work study could take place? At the library, at the gym? What would he be doing? What would she be doing? NCAA, portfolio, if you're an artist, different kinds of things. Campus safety, what time does the bus stop that takes students from campus into town and back? When does that come and go? When is the last train or last bus? Okay. Those are more questions, and that's why students, I'll tell you, visit with your parents, obviously, because you're going to see things that they're not going to see, and you're going to look for things that they're not going to look for. But your parents are going to look for things that you're not going to look for. You're probably not going to really care too much about campus safety, perhaps. But they will, and they're going to see how easy is it for anybody just to walk into this dorm or this residence hall, and you'll be able to see that, and they'll ask those questions, and you'll have your eyes open for other things, and keep note of those things. Okay. Another question. We took some college level courses through Malloy College, through LIU, through Syracuse University. Will you take those credits? We took college criminal justice. We took college economics. These kinds of classes, will they count? My son or daughter is taking or took AP US History and got a 4. Will you take a 4? Will you take a 3? As a score, will that count? All right? Different kinds of things. What kind of equipment do I need? Things like that. Was there recruitment on campus last spring? What companies were here in the business department that recruited students, at your school? And where are they? Where are the graduates from your program in biology? Are they in medical school? Are they in graduate programs and other things? I think it comes to, you're not going to know the questions yet. I guarantee I've worked with a lot of families, and at this stage of the game, you're like, oh, those sound like pretty good questions. It's not until you start visiting, you're filling out common applications, you're filling out FAFSA, and then you're sitting around the dining room table and you're like, we really should ask about housing to make sure we have housing in your second year. We really should ask about this, and we should really ask about when the deposit, how much is the deposit? It'll come to you, but it won't come to you tomorrow. So give yourself a chance, but it will. Parent access to information. Most schools have a FERPA override, which means you as parents, you can't call the school. They won't talk to you. If you want to say, well, I want to know what my kid's grades are, they won't entertain the call. They would say, talk to your child. However, if your son or daughter signs a FERPA waiver to give you access, then you can view grades online and so on. You can do it. So there can be things like that you can work out as a family. You can ask these kinds of secondary questions. Okay? So yeah, after you do this kind of thing and you're really kicking this around, you go to college fairs, you ask them directly. I keep bringing up Ralphie from the Christmas Story. There's so many parents, like they're waiting on that line to talk to a college admissions rep, and they finally get there, and they forgot what they were going to say. So write them down. Write those questions down. Browse at these college fairs. You might find some hidden gems. These are some places where you can find some secondary research. If you go on a college website, now tomorrow when this is live, that college website is underlined. That's a live link to Quinnipiac University. And you can find a lot of things on college websites. The hardest thing to find on a college website is their cost of tuition. They just make it hard to find. They don't want you to find it. But it's there. I rely on a lot of different things, and I'm still a guidebook guy. I still make that part, and that's why I've been giving out those SUNY books. But think of those questions. One of the great guidebooks that I've found over the years is put out by Fisk, the Fisk Guide. And we have one in the guidance office. It's the new 2025 Fisk Guide. Now, somebody in this room, on the back of your the college fair flyer, has the words Fisk Guide. Who has Fisk Guide on the back? Oh, you win the book. The 2025 Fisk Guide. Now, what this is, Congratulations. What the Fisk guide is going to give you some subjective material. It's going to say, well, this is kind of its social life rating, and this is kind of its safety rating, and this is kind of the culture of the campus, and that has a subjectivity to it. But I still like it. It did give me a glimpse into a lot of colleges that I wasn't aware of. So enjoy. Now, for the rest of you, we do have a copy in the guidance office. You can borrow it at any time. So let's see if we can get to some questions. Okay, that's a live link too to that college fair. So those of you at home, you'll be able to access that QR code for the college fair tomorrow. All right. So let's answer some questions. Anybody? I know we covered an awful lot tonight. Are there other college fairs other than the April 1st? I looked on the NACAC website as recently as an hour ago, thinking they might have posted something. There's one in the city. There's one in Manhattan on April 5th through NACAC, but they used to have a spring NACAC fair. It doesn't look like they're doing that. But if you can't make this one, there's a big one in the fall, and that's also by NCA, College Fair. Excuse me? That's 5:30 to 8:30. Yes. Okay. But you know something? If I get anything from either that organization or any others, I will put it on the website. And there are a lot of virtual college fairs that we can share as well. Other questions? Okay, the question is, for the honors programs, do you have to specify your major in advance? And I would say your major can be undecided. So it wouldn't be an honors program for health science students necessarily. But it would be, those core classes would be taken on an honors level. And like I said, and this is another secondary question you can ask, is what does your honors program consist of? Why is it special? You know, what do you do? Cultural excursions? Do you have small classes? Do you have notable guest speakers? These are the kinds of things that I've heard from different honors programs, and they've been impressive. So, yes? Target or range?
Yeah, like it's not a reach. It's a school that's target. When you go into the honors, do they maybe throw money?
Yes.
Is it more?
The question is, for some of the honors programs, even if it's a target school for you, will they offer you money? And in many cases, they will. In many cases, they will. So the question is, are you invited to be in the honors program automatically, or do you have to apply to be in the honors program? And that's really the question, because it does vary. You know, some colleges, you get an acceptance and it says you are invited to be in our honors program. You've been accepted to the college on the honors program. So, yeah. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone being here tonight. If you think of anything, I'm going to stick around a little while. And I will see you in a week, and we're going to talk about financial aid. Thank you for coming. Good night.